Russia occupies 1/6 of the land surface of the earth. From the Arctic snows to the hot sands of Central Asia, from Vladivostok, an oriental port on the Pacific Ocean, to St. Petersburg and Moscow, the Tsar's great capitals in modern Europe. Nicholas II, by the grace of God, Emperor and autocrat of all the Russias. He announced upon ascending the throne that he would preserve the principle of autocracy firmly and immutably. In her summer palace at Livadia, the Tsarina is receiving gifts from the captains of the guard on her birthday. The royal family, the Tsar, the Tsarina, the Tsarevich, and the 4 daughters, Olga, Tatiana, Maria, and Anastasia. A large part of the Tsar's official life consisted of religious ceremonies. The heads of the Greek Orthodox Church were the Tsar's chief aid in preserving the principle of autocracy. The Tsar supported the church with money, and the church taught the people that he can take off his royal togs and go swimming like a regular human being. As Will Rogers told us, there is not a bathing suit in Russia. His Majesty is on the left. Next to the land-owning nobility stood the bourgeois class of merchants and capitalists. Beneath the landlords and capitalists, and remote from the Tsar as though in a different world, the vast mass of the people lived in ignorance, toil, and extreme poverty. But the Tsar had many able defenders against revolution. The Cossacks were loyal and fierce. The Tsar had an army of 4 million peasants. The Kaiser also had soldiers to play with. The Kaiser enjoys the war game for the last time in 1913. 1914, the real thing. The Russian armies were soon defeated by the superior organization and equipment of the Germans. By the end of 1916, their retreat had become a national disaster. The soldiers were being herded into battle, hungry, ill-clad, without enough ammunition, even without guns. Corruption, treachery, neglect, profiteering had ruined the Tsar's military organization. The Tsar's military experience consisted of praying with the army for victory and sprinkling the soldiers with holy water to make them fight better. The soldiers did not want parades and ceremonies, but generalship, food, ammunition, clothing. At home, too, the people were starving. In the empty markets, the crowd stood desperate. Workers abandoned the factories and held demonstrations in defiance of the police. They began to march in groups, singing revolutionary songs, carrying banners, peace, bread, liberty. The Tsar's answer: I forbid all meetings in the streets. I warn the people that the soldiers have been instructed to use their rifles to restore order in the capital. The crowds increased. The street meetings continued. And for the first time in history, the Tsar's soldiers failed him. Instead of using their rifles to restore order, they completed the disorder by joining the people in the streets. The Duma, or Parliament, met in the Tauride Palace. It was dissolved by order of the Tsar, but in great fright and excitement decided to remain in the capital. The people in revolution surrounded the palace. In the left wing of the palace, a group of revolutionists issued a leaflet summoning all factories and regiments to elect deputies to a council or Soviet of workers and soldiers. Within 12 hours, the Soviet was elected and assembled. The next day, 4 regiments of the garrison mutinied and marched to the Tauride Palace to defend the revolution. Soldiers no longer, but armed peasants demanding the rights of citizens. You see here in the main thoroughfare of Petrograd the moving body of the power that overthrew the Tsarist autocracy and initiated those events which have altered the whole course of modern history. Rights of citizens is the slogan inscribed upon their banner. 2 loyal members of the Duma went to the front to demand that the Tsar abdicate in favor of his feeble son. Shulgin of the old aristocracy and Guchkov, a representative of big business. The Tsar's abdication. As we do not wish to be separated from our dear son, we transmit the throne to our dear brother, the Grand Duke Michael Alexandrovich. May the Lord God help Russia. But the Grand Duke Michael had seen the streets of Petrograd. He abdicated the next morning without waiting for a stenographer. The Tsar's immediate successor was the people of Russia, who ceased all business and lived in the streets as on a perpetual holiday. But the government born in the Tauride Palace turns out to be twins. In the right wing, a group of Duma members led by Paul Milyukov declare themselves a provisional government. In the left wing, the Soviet, under the presidency of the socialist Cheyidze, elects an executive committee which actually directs the revolution. The provisional government of landlords and capitalists wanted to restore order, defend private property, and win the war. The soldiers and workers in the Soviet wanted to stop the war, confiscate the landlords' estates, and have bread, peace, and liberty. A government demonstration, war to complete victory. A Soviet demonstration, land and liberty. Long live the International. One man thought he could solve the problem by joining both governments. Alexander Kerensky. He soon combined the liberals with the heads of the Soviet in a coalition government and called himself Minister-President Kerensky. But he could not combine land and liberty with war to complete victory, and he chose war to complete victory. The landlords and capitalists applauded. The heads of the Soviet consented. But the revolutionary workers and soldiers flocked to a new and more powerful leader, Lenin. Kerensky is a tool of the landlords and capitalists. Stop the war. Confiscate the land. Russia belongs to the workers and peasants. All power to the Soviets. Lenin's program of proletarian revolution against the Kerensky government was expounded to the masses on the socialist holiday, May 1st, 1917, by the best orators of the Bolshevik Party. The first May Day ever celebrated by socialists with power. Kamenev is expounding, as yet without extreme conviction, Lenin's demand for a second revolution. But at that very moment, another great revolutionist was arriving from a small upstairs apartment in the Bronx, New York City, Leon Trotsky. Kerensky is a tool of the landlords and capitalists. Stop the war. Confiscate the land. Russia belongs to the workers and peasants. All power to the Soviets.